morning, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session of our Work from Home with Sage webinar series. Thank you for making time to join us. My name is Priscilla, your host this morning. We have our ISV partner, Natalie and Anne, with us today to share and demonstrate smarter remote working with Orchid Systems, integrate with Sage 300 for business continuity and productivity. You are put on listening mode during the presentation, and joker rights will be given during the Q&A. Meantime, if you have any question, you may type them in the control panel on your right. Without further delay, over to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Priscilla. My name is Natalie from Orchid Systems, and today I also have Anne in this presentation, and we will share the, I will do the talking and Anne will do the demonstration in various scenarios. So today we will explore how the depth of Sage 300 combined with the flexibility provided by Orchid add-on modules are helping businesses work remotely and build resilience for volatile times. Just briefly before we look at our demonstration, a few facts about Orchid, who we are. Basically a Sage 300 development partner, and we have over 5,000 Sage 300 sites in over 60 countries around the world, running on average 2 of our modules, and they're supported by over 400 Sage business partners across the world. We are based in Sydney, Australia, and over the years we have won many industry awards from Sage. We've developed 13 integrated modules, and by integrated modules, I mean that they are developed in the Sage 300 SDK. So they look and feel like Sage 300. They will dump and load like other Sage 300 modules, and they activate like other Sage 300 modules. And we have been in the Sage 300 world for over 25 years. Our 13 modules are grouped into these 5 product categories. We won't go through all of them today, but in this presentation, we will focus on collaboration and business intelligence with document management link for going paperless, with notes to facilitate collaboration between team members. We will also look at automation and productivity with Process Scheduler to automate Sage 300 tasks and Report Runner to run Crystal reports and Sage financial reports automatically. We will also look at tailoring and integration, in particular Extender, which lets you do validation, approvals, and basically tailor your processes in Sage 300. We will touch on EFT processing to streamline your financial processes and going paperless. And we will also look at our latest product to be released in the next few weeks called Remote Access to approve Extender workflow records in the cloud. Basically, to introduce these various modules, we work with Orca Oz Enterprises, an Unreal company selling office furniture and lights that has been using Sage 300 and Orchid add-ons for a long time to solve everyday business problems. And this presentation, we explore how the team use the modules to support their remote work. And the team includes Steve, the CFO, Anne and Natalie in the sales team, Charlotte is a vendor, Sue is the office manager, David is the marketing manager, and we also have 2 customers. So we will demonstrate 3 scenarios across different functional areas of the business and see how these modules help them in the context of remote work. First, we will look at the AP team and how they can go paperless using document management link, Extender workflow for their approvals, including remote access, and EFT processing to pay vendors. Our second scenario, we will look at customer engagement and how the modules support customer-facing employees with better information using notes, document management link, and automated validation and processes with Extender. In our final scenario, we will look at the finance management team and how they use alerts and analysis using Extender and Info Explorer, how they automate some of their reports with Report Runner and Process Scheduler. And We hope that this will demonstrate how these add-ons can comfort the senior teams that their investment in technology adds value to their business in a cost-effective manner and helps their team work remotely. So our first scenario is around going paperless in the accounts payable team. As the office manager, Sue wears many hats, including looking after Orca's accounts payable and accounts receivable. In addition to juggling all these hats, Sue also used to file lots of paper and emails to get approvals. And now she's got to work from home and using Orchid's add-on, Document Management Link and Extender. She can now enter invoices and file all the supporting documents in Sage 300. Steve can approve all the required documents without any printed documents. So our scenario, in more detail, this is what we're going to look at in Sage 300. Sue will enter invoices in Sage Accounts Payable and file all the supporting documents, which can be scanned images, PDFs of receipts, emails, documents attached to emails, or invoices downloaded from websites, or scanned documents that are on your machine and you're going to file into Sage 300. When she tries to post the batch, the approval workflow starts, and Steve will then receive an email that an AP invoice batch needs to be approved. He has a choice to approve either using the Extender Workflow Console in Sage 300 or using remote access. And while he's logged into Sage 300, he can still view the documents that have been attached against that invoice. When he approves, Sue can then create a payment batch. And at that point, she still has access to all the documents that were filed against the invoice because they're also visible from the payment and from the vendor activity. If needs be, she can attach more documents like the AP payment or the remittance advice. And from there, she can then create an EFT file. With that, she can send the file to the bank and email the remittance advice to vendors, all this without having to print or file any paper, having to go to the bank to send the remittance to them, having to go to the post office to send the remittance advice, or having anyone sign any checks. So now I'm going to hand over to Anne to actually demonstrate this in Sage 300. So over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Natalie. So my name's Anne from Orchid Systems, and today I'm going to be doing the demonstration of the scenarios that Natalie has explained. So I'm logged into the Sage 300 company as Susan, and Susan is the office administrator, and she's entering her AP invoices. So just opening up this batch that I've already entered. And Sue's entering the invoices for the redevelopment of the website. And I've already entered the invoice from Charlotte's Webwork and the invoice for the icons that we had created for the revamped website. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, I have a list of files which are associated with this particular vendor, vendor 1200, Charlotte's Webwork. And these are all the invoices that I've received previously from Charlotte's Webwork. And up the top, I don't have the individual invoice for CWW-12, which is the one that I've just entered. And similarly, for our second vendor, I've got all their invoices, but not the individual one that I'm currently entering. So this box on the right-hand side is Document Management Link, and you can configure this around any Sage 300 screen, and it's your choice as to how many boxes you have and how you display this information. So when Sue's entering this invoice, CWW12, she can either, if she's received this invoice via email, she can either drag the invoice out of email. So she can drag it and pop it in the document management link box, and I'll just minimize my email. and you can see it has filed it away in the appropriate place, and it did actually rename the document accordingly. So Sue could double click here to open it up, but more importantly, anyone else looking at this invoice batch or this vendor or this document can have access to this document. And if relevant, you can even drag in the actual email message. So when I drag in the message, you can see it brings in the MSG file. So if there was information in the email as well that you wanted to associate with the invoice, you can. And Document Management Link has been configured to renumber the file and file it away. And we can do the same thing for the second invoice. And if I don't have it via email, I can click on the Add button and browse to find that document. For example, if it's in my downloads document, and let's just find a appropriate file. And when we drag it in, that file is renumbered based on the invoice number. And somebody with access to the AP invoice entry would be able to double click and open it up. So once Sue's done her entry and associated the documents with her invoices, she can go ahead and either post or make ready to post. Whether she posts or make ready to post, Extender has been configured that whenever the batch status is changed to ready to post, to actually prevent the batch from posting and to start a workflow. And this particular workflow has been designed that if it's more than $40,000, it will go to 2 people for a sequential approval. But in this case, you can see my batch total is 6,000 something, and so it's only going to 1 person for approval. And Sue gets the message that the batch has been submitted for approval and it's waiting for the finance manager group. And Sue, because she is also a workflow user, can go to her workflow console and can see this AP invoice batch sitting here, batch number 99, waiting for the finance manager to approve, and a summary of the details in the heading. It's batch number 99, total $6412, and the batch description, redevelopment of the website. So I'm just going to log in now as Steve, because Steve is a member of the finance manager group. And when Steve goes to his workflow console, as you'd expect, he also sees this entry for the batch number 99. And from the workflow console, he could drill down and see the AP payment batch. So he could see all the entries in the AP payment batch, and most importantly, see the attached documents. So if he needed to open that up to make sure that the document had been coded correctly, he could double click to open it up. And these documents can either be in SharePoint, if you're using SharePoint in a SharePoint library, or it could be on a network folder, or it could be on a map drive like Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive. So it can be shared remotely. People just need access to that particular drive or SharePoint library if that's what you're using. So Steve could go ahead and accept and post from here, or accept the batch or reject the batch, depending what he feels about this particular entry. But also at the time of the batch being submitted, Steve would have received an email. So if he wasn't in the office, and I just need to click send and receive, if he wasn't in the office, if he was remotely, he could still see, he would still receive this, this request to have a look at this batch and approve or reject and act on this batch. So as you can see, when I open up this email, it was sent to everyone who's in the finance manager group. It tells us what company the request came from, the batch number, the description of the batch, the total dollar value of the batch, and what's the status so far. Because this workflow could have been submitted for 2 levels. If it was more than 40,000, then it's telling us that it didn't require 2 levels because it's less than the 40,000. And Steve is asked to have a look. So he could click here, which would open up his workflow console, just like I showed you previously. Or if he's not in the office and doesn't have access to Sage 300, he can click on this web link. And on the web link, you can see the same information that you see as part of the email. And this is actually built by, you have templates to build what information is shown on the form. So you're seeing the same information, the batch description, batch number, and batch total, and he can approve or reject from here. So if he's happy with this, so yes, okay, Charlotte's team has done the work and it's coded correctly, we can go ahead and approve this batch. So this response is now being stored on the website temporarily until such time as the responses are pulled down into the underlying company. And normally you would use Process Scheduler and poll the site regularly. So you would run, Process Scheduler allows you to set up schedules to run repetitive tasks on a time schedule. And so normally you would use this Process Scheduler to schedule this to happen every half an hour or every 15 minutes, depending how quickly you want to bring down the information from the website. But I'm just going to go ahead and run it right now because I don't want to wait 15 minutes for this response to come back in. So I'm not sure if you noticed that flicking coming up there, but that was actually the batch being posted. So the workflow template has been, when Steve accepted, it actually posted the batch. And Sue would have got an email saying that her batch had been posted. And Steve would be able to go into the inquiries, or anyone could go into the inquiries and see this invoice batch number 99. If I look at the detail log, you can see it was submitted by Susan and then actually posted, accepted and posted by Steve. And this workflow log can be viewed by anyone who has access to the workflow log, and indeed auditors down the track if they want to see who submitted, who created, and who posted batches as a history. So Sue would have got the message, an email message to say that it's now been posted. So I'm just going to log back in as Sue. And she could also go to the workflow inquiry to see that. But the next step in her process is to make a payment to the vendors. So just opening up this payment batch, and because she knows that Charlotte's anxiously awaiting this money, she goes ahead to do a payment to vendor 1,200. And she still has, here's my invoice CWW12 that I posted just previously. She still has access to the documents, so she can double click and double check, or perhaps if it was a second person in the department who did the payment batch, they would still have access to the documents if they need to double check it at the time of payment entry. So if I go ahead and add that entry, I must remember how to, what do I need to fill in? Sorry, you can, yes. So as apologies, we've got our payment number for the $5,400. And if that was all the payments that Sue was going to do, she'd go ahead and post that batch. We could have a second workflow happening on the actual AP payment batches as well as the invoice batches if that's needed. But once posted, she could then go ahead and click Create EFT File. And at this point in time, we could have another workflow kick in, because it might be, yes, on day one, we're happy to pay this invoice, but day 5 days later, when we come to create the EFT file, perhaps you need another workflow for people to verify that we do actually have that $5,000 in the bank account to be making this payment now. So workflow is configurable around any batch or any master file, and you can have approval as to when it can be created, as we can around the EFT payment batch being uploaded. And after uploading to the bank, Sue would go and print the email remittance advices, which would email the vendors the amount and invoices that have been applied to the amount that's just been paid. So on that note, I'm going to hand you back to Natalie to review the scenario and introduce the second scenario that we'll be doing shortly.
Thank you, Anne. So the purpose of this scenario was to give you one example of how Orca Oz uses the modules, document management link, extender, and EFT processes for their own process of going paperless and having approvals. It's also to provide ideas as to how it can be used. And we found that it's particularly well suited to working remotely, because obviously you don't need to print the papers, and you can email the approval requests and collaborate between team members without having to physically move the papers around. But it can also apply to other Sage 300 core modules like accounts receivable or general ledger, and to third-party screens. EFT processing has been used for a long time for contactless and paperless payments, but it's proving even more popular these days, with more users starting to use it to process direct debit to collect customers' receipts. So we've seen here how we can use EFT to process AP payments to vendors, but you can also, provided you have a direct debit agreement with your customers, use it to process customer receipt and collect money. So the AP invoice approval workflow is a new addition to Orca Oz processes. Used to be a nice to have, but now with a remote team, they found that having that embedded into Sage 300 with the workflow history and the workflow console showing everyone who has done what and who still needs to do what is useful for collaboration on a day-to-day basis, but is also useful when explaining to auditors what has happened. And with the latest offering, remote access, Orca Oz team now has even more choice as to how they can approve. So use the extended workflow console if they need to drill down and view more details, but for a quick approval in the cloud, the remote access service is a great addition. And find that everyone is benefiting from this contactless and highly configurable and auditable processes. The next scenario focuses around customer-facing employees using Sage 300 order entry and accounts receivable. And Orca has solid processes to manage their customers. They want to deliver great customer service, increase sales, and at the same time, control their credit risk and their margins. And quick response and collaboration between team members are particularly important. At the moment, with the lockdown, the pressure is on to generate more business, possibly from different customers and the standard customers. And Anne has been working the phones very hard and has finally managed to get one of the smaller customers, Leviathan Lighting, to place an unusually large order. So that's the good news. But the bad news is that Leviathan can't pay immediately, and also they've asked for a substantial discount. So Anne enters the order, and as she's entering the order, we'll see how she has a lot of information about the customer, like their credit history and their past sales history. And also, when she's entering the order, there's an automatic validation that validates the sales margin, because the CFO wants control and approval around discounts and orders entered at a low margin. There's also some extra buttons on the order entry screen to help automate some of the processes, like printing the order confirmation and the invoice into a PDF form and filing them in the appropriate folder so that they are visible in document management link within Sage 300, again, without filing any paper document. And at the moment, with less time in the lunchroom or on the coffee machine, sharing details about deals, Orca has recently implemented a notification in Microsoft Teams so that the sales team can review the orders with a low margin or all new orders, and that's using Extender Workflow. We also have a process to approve credit limit increases, and we will demonstrate this using the remote approval, as all these processes facilitate collaboration between team members in an effective manner. So now I'll hand back over to Anne to demonstrate this in Sage 300.
So just before I go ahead and enter the sales order for Leo's Leviathan sales, I'm just going to describe some of the customizations we have around the order entry screen, because we have a lot of additional information showing around the order entry screen. So looking at an old order, order number 1, in the top box, we can see the purchase order that we received from the customer and the order confirmation that we emailed to the customer. So this is document management link, just like we saw for accounts payable, but here it's allowing us to collate information about the customer and order. This second box here is calculated by Extender and showed to us as via a dynamic note, and it's showing me the year-to-date sales for customer 1200. So when I'm taking a sales order or reviewing a sales order, I can see what their year-to-date sales are without having to go and run a sales inquiry or sales report. And we've also chosen to show what the current credit limit is for the customer and who changed it last. So I can see on the 16th of May, Steve set the credit limit for Ronald Black to $45,000. And because I'm on the active item is my fluorescent desk lamp, I can see the total quantity sold and net sales year to date and the average price that we've sold this item to the customer. So if you are talking about doing specials or discounts, you can see what you've been doing so far this year. And I'm also seeing some documentation which is specific to that particular item. Maybe the labels that need to go to the customer at the time of shipping, or maybe QA checks that we need to do before we can ship out that item, anything relating to the item. And that's document management link showing us that. So if I select another item, you can see I'm looking at different information. My statistics per item is different, but the customer or order related information is the same. So if I go ahead and create a new order for my customer 1240, and enter the purchase order number, if I had the purchase order in emails, I could drag it in just as we did, with the invoices. And I can see that his credit limit is currently 53,000, and it was updated by Steve doing an update on the customer's record yesterday. So discussing with Leo what he needs, he said he needs 100 of these fluorescent desk lamps or 1,000 fluorescent desk lamps to be sent around to his staff at home. And the unit price is currently $45, but in negotiation, I'm going to change it to $35. And as I tab off this line, I get a warning message that this $35 is breaking our threshold of 10% margin per item. And because of this, I know that the order will go on hold when I create it, and a workflow will start to approve this order while it's because it's been less than the 10% margin. Now I could, this could have been an error message and not let me do that change, but in my case, it's just a warning message. And if Leo had ordered another item, some bulbs for those desk lamps, each person has a spare, and go ahead and add that. So we can see, as we could for our previous sales order, that the sales amount, the total sales to date for this customer is 15,000. And here's the statistics for this particular item, which which changes as I look at the different items, and the item information sitting here. When I go ahead and create this order, and I'm now over my credit limit, so I know I'm going to request a credit limit increase, apart from just trying to approve this particular sales order here and now. So I'm just going to create the order. And I know workflow has started off because the order is my credit limit. My margin check did not pass, so the order has been put on hold till approved. So I'm getting the message the order has been put on hold, and I can see it's been put on hold because the low margin orders require approval. But I also know that my workflow has sent through a message through to Teams, so all the sales team can see this. So in the appropriate Teams channel, I can see low margin order created, number 124, and here's our PO ABC. So Extender is able to communicate with external applications, cloud services. This is Teams in the cloud, part of Office 365, to communicate with the team. And Extender is also able to customize the order entry screen. In this case, we have an add freight button. So when I click that, it would add freight for this particular order, but also a print and email button, which when clicked will PDF the order confirmation, email it to the customer, and also file it away for the document management link to display it beside this particular order. So once that email has gone through and it's sent to, normally that would be the customer's email address, once it's been sent through and emailed, if I just refresh the order on the screen, maybe I did that too quickly. Maybe I did it out of sequence, but normally we would see this order now being, or maybe it's still being created, see this order now being shown in this box for other people to view later. If I can't go ahead and ship that order now because it's on hold and it needs approval, and I'm also going to ask for a credit limit increase for the customer 1240. But just to show you that you can have different information displaying for different customers, for different screens, depending on the information that you need at that time. So if I was to create a new shipment, what we can display around the shipment is, for example, all the back orders. So if I was to click on any one of these orders, it would open up the order entry screen with all the order entry information being displayed. But I can also display the current aging for the customer, and I can display the current credit status. So any of these blue fields can be hyperlinked, and when I click on it, for example, if I click on this over, it will open up those invoices or documents that make up that particular balance, which is a different list of documents than if I click on the current, which picks up these two documents. And I can see what's been in pending orders, 53,000. So although I'm not over the credit limit in terms of invoiced, in terms of orders, I am over the credit limit, which is why I'm going to ask for the credit limit to be upped so I can go ahead and ship that particular emergency order. So I'm not going to post that, but I'm going to go to my AR customer record and have a look at the customer 1240. And I can see the credit limit is currently sitting at 53,000. And I know my order takes it over 53,000 in terms of the outstanding orders for this customer. So I'm going to go ahead and request that this credit limit gets put up to 60,000. And when I save the record, because Extender has been configured to have a workflow automatically start on the credit limit field changing, I can see that the credit limit workflow has started and the requested value has not been saved. So you can see it's gone back to 60,000. And the finance manager has been assigned this particular workflow instance. Because the amount was greater than 40,000 that I've requested, it goes to the finance manager, as opposed to if it was less than 40,000, this particular workflow would just send it to anyone in the AR sales group. So anyone other than myself can approve that, but because the amount is larger, it's being sent through to the finance manager. And again, as Anne, because I have access to the workflow console, if I was to go to my workflow console, and not if I see things assigned to me or assigned to me or a group I'm in, so I can approve sales orders because I'm in the sales manager group, but I can't approve that credit limit because I'm not part of the finance manager group. But I do have access to view all, so I can see what's going on, although I wouldn't be able to progress this workflow. And because the amount I asked for was more than 40,000, this is sitting as an urgent task on anyone in the finance managers group for them to approve. And I can see I've requested the 60,000. And from here, I could drill down into the customer activity or the customer screen, or if we do direct debits with this customer, I can see the EFT customers activity as well. So again, I'm just going to sign in as Steve. And also do a refresh on Steve's email in my Outlook. And I can see this email coming through. And again, the email is constructed through a template, so you can include whatever information from the customer record in this instance that you want. And I can see the credit limit has been requested from 53,000 to 60,000. And I could either go and look at the console or approve it again on the website. So assuming Steve's still out the office, when he clicks on that, he sees what the requested credit limit is and he can add comments, but he can also change the requested credit limit. So, Anne's a bit optimistic, asking for 60,000. Steve knows that 58,000 is probably as high as he wants to go, and he's going to say 58 is the highest. And goes ahead and approves. And again, this would be automatically next time Process Scheduler runs the 15-minute task, it would automatically go through and pull that down. But I'm just going to go ahead and run that. And it'll bring down that one particular approval, or any approvals that have had happened since it was last run. In this case, our credit limit approval. And then Sue would have received an email to say that the credit limit has been approved. So if I log in as Sue, sorry, it was Anne, wasn't it? Doesn't matter. Sue also has access to customers. And if I go to my AR customer record, I can see that the credit limit is now sitting at the 58,000 that it was approved by Steve. And I could either access that credit limit history, the workflow history from the customer record, or I too can go to inquiries, go to the summary log and see the credit limit for 1240. Requested value was 60,000. And if I look at the detail log and make this just a fraction wider, we can see the requested value done by Anne was 60,000, but the approved value done by Steve was 58,000. And if I drill down further to the values, I can see the comment that Steve made on the website, as well as if he had done it from the console if he was in the office. So that is the scenario that I was showing you, the scenario we can have around our customers. So I'm now going to hand back to Natalie to review this and introduce scenario number 3.
Thank you, Anne. So in scenario 2, we looked at how around the order entry screen and the AR customer screen, we can share information using notes, document management, link, and extender, and a combination of that. So that helps us share information within the team of people using Sage 300 and also outside of Sage 300. We've looked at an example in Microsoft Teams to collaborate with team members, but if you're using Slack or any other platform for teamwork that has an API, it's very likely that Python can actually communicate with those platforms as well. We use Extender to automate some processes and to enforce some business rule validations. We also have the remote access for quick approvals in the cloud, as well as approvals in the workflow console. And a lot of this is underpinned by Extender to automate the processes and enforce the validation, as well as process schedulers that can automate sending some reminders and some notifications. So going on to process scheduler, in our third scenario, we will really look at how Orca Oz Teams gets reports and exception notifications from Sage 300 more efficiently, which helps the visibility and the efficiency of the finance team. And with this crazy start to the year, the Orca finance team is often in meetings to discuss the impact of the crisis on their business. Some of the items like desk lamps sell very well when everyone is setting up their home office, while others have a lower turnaround. So they start using Info Explorer to analyze their stock and their sales. And they also want to implement automatic notification when items get below their minimum quantity. They also identify that one of their biggest customers, Great Barrier Beef, that supplies meat to the restaurant industry, are suddenly in serious trouble, and they've advised that they may not be able to pay their latest invoice by the due date. They're worried that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and they want to monitor their credit limits even more closely than usual. So they decide to set up some automatic notifications using Process Scheduler and Extender scripts to notify the purchasing manager of items below their minimum quantity and customers over their credit limit or outside of their standard terms. They also want more visibility on their sales and their financial positions, so they're going to use Info Explorer to support the analysis, sales analysis and the stock analysis. And then we'll also use Report Runner to automate sending some reports, both the analytical reports and financial reports. And they're also implementing Extender to continue automating these process compliance and make sure that all their approvals are logged and ready for the auditors to manage in these difficult times. So on this, I'm going to hand back over to Anne to demonstrate how we use Process Scheduler, Report Runner, and Info Explorer to support the finance team.
So thank you, Natalie. So this time I'm first going to show you a bit of setup in Process Scheduler. Process Scheduler is able to run many repetitive tasks you do, like posting of batches or integrity checks and so on. But one of the things it can do is run extender scripts. And these extender scripts could be your exceptions. And in this particular company database, what we have is an extender script that sends the warehouse manager an email if the quantity of an item is less than the minimum quantity for that particular location. So in Sage, you can define the minimum quantity per location per item. So if the quantity on hand is less than that, then the warehouse manager gets an email with all those emails, with all the items listed on there. And a second exception, which is sending the salesperson of each customer an aging notification if they're either over their credit limit or out of terms. So they're overdue in some way, shape or form using the dunning messages that you set up in Sage 300 AR. So this schedule gets run every night, and the people, salespeople or the warehouse manager, receive an email accordingly if these exceptions occurred. So based on the last time that I ran these exceptions, we've got a customer, R1240, who's got an outstanding balance. So they may not be over the credit limit, but their invoices are overdue. So here the customer 1240 has an overdue balance, and when you right-hand mouse button on this using our email smart link, it will open up your Sage 300 and open up the AR customer inquiry underneath that. And another example is the one from the minimum stock. So sent to the warehouse manager, we can see all the items, the location, and what the minimum stock is, and what the minimum reorder quantity is. So we can see that all these items need to be ordered. Now, this script was just geared to send an email notifying somebody of this, but it could have created a purchase requisition or a purchase order at the same time, because extender can be used to automate your business processes, and Process Scheduler can be used to call those extender scripts so they can run when you need to run them. But the other side of Process Scheduler that I wanted to show you was another schedule which allows me to run my daily reports every night. So we've got a schedule called Daily Reports. And it does two things. It runs any crystal reports that people have asked for to be run every day and emailed to them. And it also refreshes an Info Explorer cube. So every day it'll run these reports and email and refresh the Info Explorer cube. And the reports that it's running are the ones that you've set up in Report Runner. So in Report Runner, you can set up both crystal reports and financial reports. You can set up menus of these reports, assign them to groups, and assign users to groups. And these can be the standard Sage 300 reports, like the batch control report, or it could be your own custom crystal reports. In this case, it's a customer AP vendor aging, and here we've got a custom AR vendor aging, which we've scheduled to run every night and to be emailed to both Sue and Anne, who are responsible for the AP and the AR aging reports. So rather than Sue and Anne having to remember to run them every day, or perhaps we only schedule them on a Sunday night, so Monday morning, rather than remembering we've got to run that and then follow up accordingly, they can be scheduled overnight and emailed accordingly. And looking at the emails, and I've just collected them in one particular email account here. So this is an example of the AP age trial balance that was run on the 25th of May and emailed through to Sue. And similarly for the AR age trial balance and emailed through to Anne. That's both AP. I'm not quite sure which email the AR one is sitting in, so forgive me on that one. So Process Scheduler can run any of the crystal reports that have been set up in the menu for in Report Runner, but it can also schedule financial reports. So you can set up menus of financial reports, and this is your Sage FR reporting that you do in Excel. And you can predetermine which, what the parameters are if you run this in detail or in summary, and what segments you're filtering on. So at the time you come to run, you just fill in the fiscal year and period that you want to run for, which Process Scheduler is able to send in, and then these reports can be run, saved, and emailed as well. And do I have, oh yeah, and the final thing that my schedule did was to email Info Explorer cubes. So in this case, it was emailed to Anne. So in Anne's email, we have this Info Explorer cube, and Info Explorer can either be run, in the office on the server at the time when you want to run it, or it can be refreshed overnight and emailed. And so to do the analysis that I'm showing you here, I don't have to have a live connection to the website, to the database, and I don't need to refresh. I can see it was last refreshed on the 25th of May, and I can do all this analysis without actually needing to be in the office or connected to the Sage 300 database. So Info Explorer allows you to present the information in a cube style, like a pivot table in Excel, except it's not a pivot table, it's not Excel. And here, this particular view I'm looking at my sales ranked by customer, and I can see per year the customers have been ranked. So in 2020, Ronald Black is my biggest customer, 1240 is my second biggest customer, and so on. So I could sort my customers by any column, and in fact I have sorted it by total sales. So Ronald Black is one across all the years, but you might find like this customer is 3 in total, but 5 in 2020, and so on. So in Info Explorer, you can add conditional formatting, so you can get traffic light formatting, green for above 60, orange between 50 and 60, and below 50 we've got for your margin is showing through as red. And that can be added by the users later. It doesn't have to be added as part of the underlying query that gets this information. But from here, I can drag and drop my rows and columns. So let me just simplify this a little bit, and I'll say, let's just look at 2020's data. And if I was to bring in my items, I'm now seeing the net sales per and margin per item per customer, and the ranking of the items within the customers. And if I turn on my display totals, my row totals, it's still ranking the customers within the total. So this is showing me, this is the #1 item for this customer. But if I had dragged my item on the outside, I'm now seeing that Ronald Black is the #1 customer for this item, and I'm now seeing my items ranked within the total. So you really only add the formulas once, and then relative to the information that you're looking at, it recalculates on the fly and shows you that information. So we're now seeing item by customer, and if I was interested in sales rep, I could pop sales rep here. So it's now grouped by sales rep, or customer and then sales rep, depending how you want to see that information. And now I'm seeing the same information, but now summarized up by salesperson. And you can have cubes on any area of your business: accounts payable, open transactions, accounts receivable, open transactions, sales statistics, as I'm seeing here, by customer and item. And you're able to remotely slice and dice this information. If I wanted to go ahead and click refresh, that's the only time that I would need access, and I'd need to be on the server with access to my Sage 300 database. But if you refresh something like sales statistics, where up to yesterday is good enough, then you can just refresh an email. And two things: you're not having people running big queries in your production database during the day, and you're also able to review this information remotely. And on that note, I'm going to hand back to Natalie to summarize what we've just seen.
Thank you, Anne. So in our final scenario, we looked at automated alerts, notifications, exceptions, and reports using Process Scheduler, Report Runner, and Info Explorer. And at this current time of increased volatility, having regular reports on how the business is doing is even more important than ever. Having the flexible configuration to tailor your business validations and your business processes to meet your auditor's requirements and enforce these business rules is particularly important. So we've explored various scenarios and how across different functional areas using Sage 300 and Orchid modules, they support remote work. In the AP team, we've seen how they can go paperless using document management link, extend a workflow for approvals, including remote access and EFT processing to pay vendors. And this is a big focus of remote work, which is working paperless and contactless, and this has an obvious paperless and contactless dimension. But our experience is also that on the customer engagement side, collaboration supported by automation is also very important at the times where more teams are split across locations. Then for the finance management team, having alerts and analysis tools that can be sent automatically and regularly without having to, and being able to look at these reports without having to refresh on the fly and log into Sage 300 is also particularly relevant at the time. So these examples obviously support remote work, but they also more broadly, this flexible configuration helps business in volatile times and provide tools and support to work in a hybrid cloud environment. So when Orca Oz keeps goes back to normal, and maybe that some of the senior teams start traveling again for to meet customers and vendors, some of these automated processes and some of these tools that help support remote work will still increase the efficiency of the business, even after the current COVID-related shutdown. So we hope that this has helped you see how we can use Sage 300 and Orchid modules to build resilience and reimagine your business processes to serve your customers better and make your team members' life easier. So for details on any of the products and solutions we've presented today, you can contact your Sage 300 business partner and their teams. And we would like to thank Priscilla and Sage for this opportunity to present Orca's business scenarios and Orchid products today. And on this, we can now we're ready for questions.
Thank you, Natalie and Anne, for the informative product presentation and demo. Attendees, you will be given vocal right if you'd like to share your question please unmute yourself on the control panel on your right so that we could hear your question, or you may type your question if you prefer on the control panel as well. So we'll just give a few seconds here for the question. Okay, first question up. Was it possible to configure the document link not to auto rename the file when dragging the attachment into the document link?
I'll take that question, Priscilla. Yes, you can. It was my configuration by design that I wanted to rename it based on the document number on the screen. But if I hadn't ticked the rename feature, it would have just dragged in with the name of the document that it already had. Either, what the document is called in email, it will just be the email subject, or whatever the original PDF was called when I dragged it out of the email, or when I found the Excel spreadsheet on the drive, it would have left it named as that. So yes, if you haven't said rename, it will be the original name of the document as you drag it in.
Brilliant.
Well, actually, I'll just add to that.
Natalie.
You can actually choose how it gets renamed. So in our example, we chose to rename it based on the document number, but you can choose to rename it, for example, starting with the document number and then leave the original file name. So we have variation of that depending on how you want to use the document and where the documents come from.
Brilliant, thank you. Next question. Is AP Approval web link a separate module?
The AP approval, the templates and the ability to run a workflow is part of Extender. You purchase the Extender module and you get the ability to run your workflows in Sage 300. But the service, it's a service when you click on the web link and you purchase that service, it's a monthly usage charge that you would pay for. So yes, to access the web links, you have a monthly usage based on how many approvals or that you'll be running through the service at that time. So that is a cloud service. It is hosted by Orchid on AWS. You do not install that locally, and there's we do an estimate on the number of approvals you'll be doing over the month, and that's what the charge is, charged annually in advance.
And this product will be released in the next couple of weeks. So the exact details and the pricing of that is not available yet. So if you're wondering why you haven't heard of it yet, that's because we are putting the final touches to it and to the practical aspects of it. So you will receive more details on that in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Natalie and Anne. Next question here. Can I port my payment to a particular bank where they can prepare the check?
Yes, it depends on the bank. So EFT is able to create a file based on whatever the bank requires, and some banks who provide the service of printing a check for you do have EFT files, so that you can include all the information that you want printed on the check. Because this time you won't be providing vendors' bank account details, but you'll be providing the company name and other information that needs to go on the check. So yes, if your bank allows you to print checks, then EFT will be able to format a file that you can upload to the bank to print those checks for you. Yes.
Thanks, Anne. Next question. Can the system handle sudden payment or cost adjustment, and how?
Sorry, can you just read that question again?
Yeah. Can the system handle sudden payment or cost adjustment?
A cost adjustment, an adjustment to the payment is. I'm not quite sure I understand that question, to be honest, Priscilla.
think the attendance is probably asking whether the system can handle a sudden payment that is maybe not scheduled.
Oh, yes. A sudden payment, yes, because you just, if you need to do an emergency payment like out of the blue, you just create the AP payment batch and then create an EFT file based on that payment batch. Yes, that's no problem. It doesn't have to be part of a scheduled monthly run of payments.
Cool. And can they also handle cost adjustment?
A cost adjustment to your payment. So are they saying they pay amount $100 and then they want to change their minds and pay only $50? No, because once the payment goes through at $50, it'll go through.
Okay, cool.
Might want to take that one outside of this, and maybe contact us, separately through the business partner. We can maybe continue that conversation separately to make sure we understand what
Sure.
exactly you have in mind. There may be a way of doing what you want, either directly with Sage 300 or EFT, or with the help of extender customization.
Yes. May I suggest the attendees who put this question, if you could elaborate a little bit more by typing out, elaborate a bit more by typing in the question box. We can pick it up after the webinar, or alternative, you can just drop an email to info.asia@sage.com and I'll pick it up and make sure that that is handed over to Natalie and to get your question answered properly. Okay, we have the next question here. What will happen if the shared drive linked to document management crash? How to rebuild link to document once storage is restored?
That's a very good question. What document management link is doing is storing the path and filters to the link, to the folder. So if the folder was rebuilt, it's not the individual documents, names that are being stored in the Sage 300 database. So if it was rebuilt, next time you ran document management link, the files would all be there. So no problem in that, because it's not individual document names and paths that are being stored. It's just really the path and how to filter that path that is stored in the Sage 300 database. It also means if you had all these documents on drive J, for example, or / server 1 C:, and you moved it to D:, you just need to change one setting in document management link. You don't have to rename all the files and folders in the database.
Thanks, Anne. Next question here. Can all this possible for APAC 2017 Windows?
Strictly speaking, 2017 is no longer supported by ourselves or by Sage, although these modules are available for 2017, except for extender workflow that is only available in supported versions, which is 18, 19, and 20 at the moment.
Actually, here we're talking about the Sage 300 version. So the remote access is only supported with 2018, 19, and 20, but actually Sage 300 version 2017 actually has extender workflow available.
Thanks, Natalie. Next question here. How long was the document retained?
The document is retained as long as you save it on the network or in SharePoint. So forever, if you do no maintenance on those drives. And if you're referring to accounts payable, what people normally do is they have the current drive with the current year's documents in, and at the beginning of next year, they will create a subfolder under the vendor's directory called 2019, and they'd move 2019's documents into that folder. So you'd only have the current 2021 and 2020 sitting in the active folder. But there's no automatic process doing that, and the documents will sit there as long as you leave them there.
Okay, I think that's all we have now. Let me just take a quick look. Okay, and the question of cost adjustment, attendees has actually come back here. He's actually referred to the sudden change in prices. Can the system handle the adjustment?
Yeah, so I see what you're saying. So you're talking more around the order entry and prices are dynamic and changing. So depending, Extender did that validation on the margin, on the fly, and it was our particular business rule that we chose to apply. You know, if the margin was less than this, then give a warning message. So if you had very dynamic pricing and you wanted a script to run at the time of order entry to go and look at what was the cost on the most recent receipt and make sure that your current sales price is, you know, still getting the margin you need based on the most recent receipt, not based on average costing or you know, any other thing, yes, it can be done. Extender can apply whatever your business logic is at the time the order is being entered. So you know, it would be a custom script that needs to be written to apply your particular logic. But yes, that would be easily done. And the scripts are written in a open source, open language. So we're not recompiling the order entry screen or giving you a compiled version of the code. You end up with a text file with your script in, applying the logic you wanted. So either you or a developer that you or your business partner could change that script as and when your business needs change. You wouldn't need to come back to us for that or to your business partner for that sort of logic change if that's what you need to do. So if I've understood your question correctly, the answer is yes. You can apply your own business validations and checks at any point in your Sage 300 processes that you need using Extender.
Thanks, Anne. I think we have a couple more questions popping up now. I think this one is probably for you. This attendees mentioned here. I saw that there is a report on the sales bill like pivot table. Can the system able to provide the detail for the next month forecast invoice amount too?
Yes. So I think you're referring to our tool Info Explorer, and I showed you sales by customer and item and sales rep. So sitting behind an Info Explorer cube is a query. So if you have your forecasted sales in Sage 300, for example, you've got it included in the item forecast area, then yes, it can bring that into the cube. Or we have another module called optional tables, which allows you to create your own extra information. For example, if you needed to keep a forecast by customer and item, we would say use our optional tables to capture that. And then yes, Info Explorer can go by customer and item to pick up the forecast that you've entered for the next month or year, whatever your query needs to bring in. Yes, so as long as the information is in Sage 300 where we can access it, yes, it can be displayed in Info Explorer. Yeah.
And in addition to that, I'll add that with Info Explorer, there's also a component of Info Explorer called Writeback, which actually helps you do your forecast and budget. So a lot of the examples that you'd find of that on our website relate around budget and possibly GL budget, but that can be applied to your sales forecast as well.
Thanks, ladies. We have the next question here. Any effect on document management link when there's a customer number or item number change?
Yes, you would need, yes. So, and it's not automated. If you were using your customer number in a folder naming structure or in your SharePoint library structure, and you renumbered your customer, you would need to go and renumber that directory or SharePoint library accordingly. So it's not automatically happening linked to document manage, linked to your renumber change, your number change happening. So it would be a manual task, but you'd need to change it. Otherwise, the documents would not follow the customer number or the item number.
Okay, I think we have very much managed all the questions that pop up in the question box. So I think we are good. In the view of time, I think we are good for this session. Thank you very much, Natalie and Anne. Before we wrap up, do look out for our invitation for the next webinar session on 3rd of June, where we will be sharing how mobile solution enable sales anywhere. As you exit from this webinar, you'll be directed to a survey. Please give us a few minutes of your time to complete the survey, which will help us improve for our future session. Once again, thank you, Natalie and Anne, joining us all the way from Australia today for sharing with us all the product knowledge and demo. And to all of you who make time to join us this morning, we look forward to welcome you back at our next webinar. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, be well. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you. And thank you for attending.
Bye.
Bye.